Hello, I'm Kenneth Griffin, and today I want to talk about capital punishment. Imagine living in a world where justice is not measured by fairness, but by revenge, where the state takes a life to prove that taking a life is wrong. Today I stand, or really sitting, before you to speak against the death penalty. Today I'm here to advocate for a policy that abolishes the death penalty once and for all. This is not about being soft on crime, it's about being firm on justice. A fair and humane justice system must value rehabilitation over retribution and human dignity over vengeance. By ending the death penalty, it will be a step to a more just and civilized society. So, one of the root causes I want to discuss about the capital punishment is the belief in the retributive justice, with the whole eye for an eye perspective, with people believing that severe crimes like murder deserve just as serious punishments. According to an article in Britannica, this perspective dates all the way back to the time of the ancient Babylons. Another root cause of capital punishment is deterrence theory, with policymakers and citizens assuming that the fear of execution determines people from committing serious crimes. Despite there being little evidence of this that supports this belief, it's still unfortunately widespread. The last one of the root causes I want to discuss is the political issues. According to the Death Penalty Information Center, politicians supporting the capital punishment want to use being tough on crime as a political tool to gain voter approval. Like with Clinton's 1994 crime bill, for example. He signed this bill so he wouldn't look soft on the issue in the eyes of the Republicans. Public outrage after violent crimes can push leaders to maintain or expand death penalty laws as well. Some stakeholders will be the victim's family, with some seeking closure or justice through the death penalty. Others oppose it, believing it will not solve anything. According to the Death Penalty Information Center, again, the victim's family members who are against the death penalty are sometimes ignored if the prosecution is adamant on seeking the most extreme punishment. Not only that, victim impact statements at sentencing proceedings can be so powerful it can make people forget any mitigating factors presented about the defendant's life. So, for some harms, according to the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, capital punishment disproportionately is used against black people and other people of color, with it totaling to 53%, making up death row inmates, 41.9% and 11.3% respectively. Another harm is that there have been numerous cases where innocent people have been executed. According to another Death Penalty Information Center article, it is shown that 21 cases where prisoners were wrongly convicted due to strong evidence proving their innocence being found later. One of these cases was one of Carlos de Luna, who was executed back in 1989 when he was accused of gas station murder back in '83. And it took until 2006 where a more thorough investigation by a journalist found that another guy who looked like de Luna admitted to the crime in 2012. He he was finally posthumously found completely innocent. Another more recent case is the execution of Marcellus Williams in 2024. He was convicted of a stabbing in 1998, where where he had constantly maintained his innocence. According to the Innocence Project, investigations found no forensic evidence on the murder weapon or crime scene that reliably connected to Williams to the crime. There are many more examples of innocent people being executed, and if nothing is changed, the risk of more convicting the innocent will rise, and each wrongful execution will become a permanent injustice. So, for the inherency, one of the barriers that prevent changes being made is the issue remains polarized amongst party lines. The Republicans generally support it, while Democrats are generally against it, making bipartisan passage difficult. Another thing is that the U.S. Supreme Court has not ruled that the death penalty is unconstitutional per se. According to the Justia U.S. Supreme Court Center, the Gregg v. Georgia ruling in 1976 upheld capital punishment because they found that it did not violate the Eighth Amendment against cruel and unusual punishment. Without a constitutional ruling that violates the Eighth Amendment, it would still be legal. So, for my plan, would be to come up with a policy that abolishes the death penalty across the country, with the first step would be trying to convince Congress to pass a law repealing all federal capital statutes removing the death penalty from the U.S. Code. The U.S. Supreme Court would also have to declare capital punishment unconstitutional under the Eighth Amendment. Another thing that can be done is to gather statistics on wrongful convictions, cost comparisons, and deterrence inefficiencies to let the public know the truth about capital punishment to sway their opinion. The second part of my plan would be to look at a case that could potentially get the Oklahoma Supreme Court to get rid of that could potentially get the Supreme Court to get rid of capital punishment. Is in that case is Glossop v. Oklahoma. According to Reuters, in February 2025, the Supreme Court vacated the death sentence of Richard Glossop, who was originally convicted in 1997 in a 1997 murder for hire case, and ordered a new trial. The court concluded prosecutors had violated Glossop's constitutional rights by failing to correct false testimony from their key witnesses. Let's say that the Supreme Court decided to use this case to interpret cruel and unusual punishment more expansively and had to consider capital punishment inherently incompatible with the evolving standards of decency, which is a key phrase from the U.S. Supreme Court jurisprudence, meaning that punishments become more unconstitutional as society values and morals change over time. For this change to be made, there would have to be a majority vote in court to get rid of the death penalty. So for solvency, many people on death row could be innocent because according to Wikipedia, the U.S. has had over 190 death row exonerations since 1973. Abolishing the death penalty would prevent the risk of innocent people being executed. It would also save money for the taxpayers because the death penalty trials tend to drag on much longer than other criminal cases. And according to another article from the Death Penalty Information Center, death penalty cases cost between 2.5 and 5 times more than non-death penalty cases. In some states, death penalty cases need between 1 million and 3 million more per case than cases trying to get life imprisonment. So for the rebuttal, one of the common arguments I hear about that are against the death penalty, that are against getting rid of the death penalty, is that the death penalty saves money for taxpayers. Why should we feed and house murderers for life? This argument sounds logical at first, but the truth is that this is false, and it's actually the opposite. The death penalty costs more than life imprisonment, much more. According to another Death Penalty Information Center article, the Federal Bureau of Prisons spent $4.7 million on 5 executions carried out back in January 2020. And with some more recent news, another article from the Death Penalty Information Center said that since October 2024, Texas has spent more than $775,000 on lethal injection drugs to carry out 6 executions. So rather than saving money, the death penalty drains public resources, money that could be actually used to prevent crimes instead of punishing it after the fact. So, in conclusion, the death penalty does not heal the wounds of victims. It does not bring peace to grieving families. It does not make our communities any safer. Instead, it perpetuates a cycle of pain and loss, taking one more life in the name of justice. What we really need is understanding and reform. Every time we allow the state to take a life, we risk taking the life of an innocent person. We risk deepening the inequalities that already plague our justice system. We risk losing our moral compass, the belief that every human being, no matter what mistakes, still possesses the capacity for change. Policy against the death penalty is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. It shows that we have evolved beyond revenge, that we value fairness over fear, and that we choose humanity over hatred. Because in the end, justice is not about how harshly we punish, it's about how deeply we care. Abolishing the death penalty is a declaration that our society still believes in mercy, in dignity, and in the possibility of redemption. Thank you for listening.